Welcome back to Killer Personality Podcast. I'm Destiny.
And I am Courtney.
And we are thrilled to be here. Season 3, Episode 2. We are going to be on Facebook. Probably that too. On YouTube. So yes. I don't know if we mentioned it in the actual episode.
I don't think that we did either.
But we are now going to be on video. So if you are listening to us and you're like, okay, they sound fun and crazy or
obnoxious.
Yeah, and idiotic.
I need to look at their faces.
Yeah, I just want to see it for myself.
Yeah.
So anyways, we are on YouTube. It's on Natural State Media YouTube channel. There are a few other podcasts that fall under Natural State Media. Little shameless plug for them. My husband's the producer. And so you can check out podcast video.
Yes, on YouTube now. So, and of course, we're still anywhere that you can hear podcasts if that's what you prefer. But yeah, we definitely want people to check out that YouTube channel and subscribe, follow us, follow Natural State Media, and get updated whenever we post a new podcast on YouTube. But okay, let's jump right into Casey Anthony. Ooh, this woman makes me so mad. We'll get into it. But another absolute media circus was created when 2-year-old Casey Anthony was missing for over 30 days without her mother telling anyone. Do you remember this case at all? Do you? I mean, it was happening.
The name is extremely familiar. The image in my brain, I feel like I get her mixed up with Jodi Arias.
Oh.
Like, I don't know if they were even around the same time, but for some reason they like stick in my brain together.
I can't remember.
But yeah,
I'm
definitely
curious.
Like a familiar name. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like everyone is mildly aware of Casey Anthony.
Oh, for sure.
Which, if this is your first episode, they happen right around each other?
Literally, probably within days.
Okay.
Yeah. So Jodi Arias, the murder of her boyfriend, we talked about this in another episode, so if you haven't heard that one, go check it out. But that one happened on June 4th, 2008, and Caylee Anthony went missing on June 16th, 2008.
Ooh.
Literally just like 2.5 weeks later. So yeah, these would have been going on.
That's why they stick in my brain. I was telling someone today, this is an aside, when you think about your brain, like what image do you have?
Of my brain?
Like when you like are gathering your thoughts, do you think of your brain in a way?
I really
We'll do a poll. Well, mine's files. I have like file cabinets.
Oh, okay.
So like, I'm like pulling things out of my files and they're in the same file. Jodi Arias.
Oh, okay. I like that. That's a good image. I don't think I've ever pictured anything like that.
We'll do an Instagram.
Yeah, I like that.
Like when you're like trying to gather yourself, do you picture like little thought clouds or thought bubbles or like it may be a therapist thing that I think about my thoughts.
Yeah.
That's a therapist thing.
No, I've only ever done stuff like that, I guess, when I do like guided meditations. But then it's like you're in a forest and, you know, I imagine like these little bubbles coming to clear up my brain, but never as files, but that is really good.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that would have happened right around the same time. I'm trying to see when the trial would have started, but I don't think it was until after. I don't think the trial started until later. But anyway, we kind of get was convicted in 2015, so it took a while for them to go through that with, and her trial started pretty soon, actually, I think in 2011. But anyway, I remember the exact location I was in. My mom was telling me about the case. I had to have been, 16 or 17 during this time. And I just remember my mom going on and on about it. And we were actually in Germany at the time, and she was still looking into the cases.
In Germany?
Well, yeah, my dad traveled for work, so we got to go, and we stayed in Germany for a few weeks.
Never knew this.
Oh, yeah, it was really cool. But anyway, I remember that so vividly. She was just so upset and would read all the news articles about it. And in fact, I think this is known as like the first social media trial. So it was like heavily influenced by social media, and we'll get more into that in a bit. But so yeah, this one's a doozy. It's also a case where, spoiler alert for all our viewers out there, if you don't know about this case already, and you didn't listen to the intro, she gets away with this. And I have some opinions, and we'll talk about them in the end. But she is found not guilty, and this surprises so many people. I think it even surprised the judge. I think the judge was like, yeah, I think the prosecution did a good job. And I mean, again, we'll get into it. But I guess not good enough because she gets away with it.
So episode 1, OJ found he was acquitted. And then, which he later ended up having further legal issues with that case. And so now episode 2.
Yeah.
So our media circuses are, maybe when the media starts getting heavily involved, it can sway like Amanda Knox.
Yes, I think that it has a big contribution to it. And I read somewhere when I was doing my research, which everything is linked below as always. But when I was doing my research, I found that like people drew a lot of similarities between the OJ case and this case, because it happened, of course, 10 years later, well, more than 10 years later. And they said it was the same kind of media insanity that drove the OJ case. And it was like the digital OJ case or something like that. I don't know, something corny. Anyway, I need to add here that this case has like some I just want to give like a major trigger warning because this case does cover like all sorts of abuse, and some of it can be really hard, especially there's like sexual abuse allegations on here. So I just want to go ahead and give that trigger warning. If you are uncomfortable hearing about stuff like that, then maybe this isn't the episode for you. But there we go. So let's go ahead and jump in.
Yeah.
As a mother, this case really gets me fired up. Like I've already said, it's unbelievable to me that no one has ever been charged in this murder, and that there's so much craziness around this case. I guess it's just one of those things that have never been solved because there just isn't enough proof to say like either way. Like there are two very different sides to this story, and unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to know what exactly happened to that sweet little baby in the summer of 2008. Like I just said, there are two sides to every story, and I want to tell you guys both of the stories that were put forward because the prosecution and the defense had very different stories, and as of today, neither of them have been proved to be true. So again, we have no idea what happened, and Casey is not giving anything.
I guess these media circus cases that we're doing, I feel like since they were so heavily televised, we've been talking more about the court side of it. So that's an interesting twist of some of our previous ones were super old cases and everybody knows they were serial killers, and it wasn't like a did they or didn't they. It was very much like they're known serial killers. And these are very much like, did they do it? Like there was, like you're saying, two sides. So
and
that could lead to controversy on any of our cases, because there may be some people that are very, I know that they did it, and the other, I know that they didn't. So keep an open mind. The main goal is enjoyment. We're not
and Enneagram. Yeah, our main goal is always the Enneagram. So keep that in mind. We talk about and again, you're right. We're going to be talking a lot about the cases and what both sides put forward a lot. And so this one is, heavily through that. I wrote in here, but in order to figure out the Enneagram type of Casey Anthony, I have to tell you both. And each one leads me to believe that she's a different Enneagram type, because the two people that were shown to the jury were two very different people with two very different personalities. So
I like that.
Casey, but in order to tell you either of the stories, we have to go back before Casey was even born, to just a really brief upbringing of her parents, just real quick. So Casey's mom, Caylee's grandmother, was born on June 5th, 1958 in Niles, Ohio. I found a couple of sources that state she was brought up in a really strict military home. This doesn't sound like a lot, but you're going to see how that very childhood kind of comes back later in this story. Her husband, Casey's father, so Caylee's grandfather, George Anthony, was born on September 5th, 1951 in Niles, Ohio. And as far as I can tell, he grew up okay, but there was definitely a strained relationship between him and his father. But I couldn't really find anything that said why or what happened or if that was kind of the whole family situation growing up. But there was definitely tension between him and his father. George and Cindy get married and eventually have 2 kids, Lee Anthony and his younger sister, Casey Anthony. Apparently, they had some financial struggles, and Cindy forced or convinced George to quit his job as a police officer after 10 years so he could make more money and so she could become a stay-at-home mom for their 2 kids. I have a husband who was very passionate about becoming a police officer, and of course, decided not to do that when we had our daughter. But I know how much it tore him up to step away from that job because you are called to a position like that. And so the fact that Cindy was like, you have to leave because we have to make more money.
And do what?
I totally relate to. Well, I think he worked a couple of odd jobs, but he ends up working for his dad at a car dealership. But, I don't even think that she ends up being able to be a stay-at-home mom. I think George does leave his job as a police officer after 10 years of being on the force. But Cindy has to continue to work as a nurse to help support their family. So George and his father, who is also who is his boss at the car dealership, they get into a fight. And this fight is intense enough that George pushes his father through a glass window. So definitely some tension between Dad and George. But again, I don't ever think we really figure out why. So we see that Dad maybe has some anger issues. Maybe it's just towards his father. We don't really know. But now that we've gotten that part out of the way, I think it's important to know that this is where the 2 stories need to separate. They're just so different, and those differences arise during Casey's childhood. But first, I want to start off with the timeline of the facts. These are things that cannot be disputed, that are just 100%, this is what happened. We have proof of this, whether it's pictures or videos or whatever. These are the things that happened in the days leading up to Caylee's disappearance and then all the way through her death. So I've excluded the part that details how and when Caylee goes missing. So we kind of jump actually after Caylee goes missing just a little bit, or we kind of skip that part because, again, the prosecution and the defense have very different stories as to why that happened. And I want to make sure that this part is just 100%. This is facts. This is what happened. So we'll need to start when Casey is seen with her boyfriend on the last day that anyone saw 2-year-old Caylee Anthony. So later that day, so Caylee is definitely seen on June 15th of 2008. There is a video recording of her with Cindy, the grandmother, on that date when they go visit a nursing home. The next day, 2 different stories, we'll skip that part, but Casey and her boyfriend are seen entering and walking around a Blockbuster store, and Caylee is not with them. So on the night of June 16th, 2008, which is the day that Caylee was to go missing, later that night, it was like 7 o'clock, they're seen at a Blockbuster. Caylee's not there. So on June 20th, 2008, Casey is photographed participating in a hot body contest at her boyfriend's nightclub. So this would be about 4 days after Caylee goes missing. June 30th, 10 days later, Casey's car is towed from a parking lot after being there for several days, and a child's car seat is left in the back. And I heard in a podcast once that it's presumed that they really only had one car seat, but I don't really know how that would be possible.
How many kids were there?
Just one. But I mean, I have a car seat, and then Patrick's, or Carter's grandparents have a car seat. And then even one of Carter's aunts has a car. Like, we have several car seats for just one kid. We only have one kid. Mm-hmm. So I find it, did Cindy and George not have a car seat? Did they always switch? But I don't know. But it was an important fact that they decided they needed to include is that Casey's car is found with a car seat and still in the back. So she's not bringing Caylee around wherever she is. That's what's assumed, at least. Mm-hmm. On July 15th, George and Cindy go... Oh, sorry. I missed one. July 2nd. 2nd? Caylee gets a tattoo on her back that says Bella Vita, which means beautiful life in Italian. So this would be like 2 weeks after her child goes missing. Okay? A tattoo, y'all. A tattoo. On July 15th, about 2 weeks later, George and Cindy go pick up Caylee's car, and they smell a strong old odor, which both George and Cindy state to people, not just to each other, to other people, that it smells like a dead body. Yeah. On inspection, they find a trash bag with old trash found in it. And again, this is all in Florida. I don't think I've said that before, but this is happening in Florida in the middle of summer. So trash, old pizza boxes in the trunk of the car probably smells pretty bad. Yeah. But to say that it smells like a dead body, I think that's extreme. Mm-hmm. And George was on the police force for 10 years in Florida. I mean, like, he probably knows what the smell of decomposition is like. So it's hard to say that he would just freely throw around smells like a dead body. Mm-hmm. Okay. They find that they go out and find Caylee, which they have not seen since the day that Caylee went missing. So July 16th, neither Cindy nor George has seen Caylee or Caylee. And so they decide, after picking up this car, which has been abandoned, they're going to go find Caylee. And they do. And she finds Caylee that day and is like, where is Caylee? You're going to tell me where she is. I haven't seen her in a month. And she's like freaking out. And Caylee, after some questions,
Caylee,
after some it's hard. Caylee. Sorry about that. Yeah. Caylee states that okay, let me jump back just a little bit. There's a 911 call to the police. That was stupid. There's a 911 call from Cindy calling the police on her daughter, Caylee, because of a stolen vehicle. She's mad. She wants to know where her granddaughter is, and she calls, and she says, I would like to report my car stolen. I have her in my car with me. Like, she's got the girl in the car with me. Can you meet me? Or, like, can I drive up to you? Can you meet me so that I can figure, because she's, like, done. She's like, I'm ready for answers, and you're going to give them to me. So she's calling the police on them. And Caylee finally fesses up and says, I don't know where Caylee is. I left her with the babysitter on June 16th, and I have not seen her since. And so Cindy, of course, is freaking out, calls the police back again. She's like sobbing. I listened to the police, the 911 call, and you can hear her just sobbing. And she's like, I don't know where she is. We can't find Caylee. The babysitter took her. I just found my daughter. She's been missing for a month. She said the babysitter took her, stuff like that. And so the 911 operator gets Caylee on the phone, and you can hear how upset Cindy is. And then she gets Caylee on the phone, and Caylee is like, yeah, I haven't seen my daughter in 31 days. And she kind of says it like, just like that, like the way me and you are talking right now.
Who was the babysitter?
So, babysitter is who she claims, and is still in the 911 call. She says Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. She says that's the nanny, and she took her, and I haven't seen her since. And she says also that I talked to her. She let me talk to Caylee on the phone today, which is crap. We know that's crap. Yeah. But she says, I talked to Caylee today. She's okay, but I can't, that she won't let me see her. Whatever. Okay. And so she calls her Zanny the nanny. Zanny the nanny. Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Is this a real person? Have we figured that out?
It is a real person. However, the next day, police investigators are looking everywhere for this woman, Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, and they find somebody named Zenaida Gonzalez. Zenaida Gonzalez has never met Caylee or Caylee Anthony. Never in her life. She says, I don't know that woman. I've never babysit her kids. I don't babysit kids. And they're like, that's interesting. And so they go on and they call Caylee's work.
Where does she work?
Universal Studios.
Oh, weird.
She doesn't work at Universal Studios. Okay? She doesn't work there.
Oh, she said she did.
Yes. She said she
Nice.
worked at them. She worked at Universal Studios. They call up there and they say, that girl got fired 2 years ago. She's been telling everybody for 2 years that she is going to Universal Studios. She's an event planner, Universal Studios. She's going to Universal Studios every day, and she's dropping Caylee off with Zanny the nanny. That's what she's been telling everybody for years. She doesn't even have a job. But it gets crazier than that because police investigators have discovered that Casey lied because they are looking for Zanny the nanny, and she goes, no, that didn't happen. And then they go to the apartment where Casey says that she dropped Caylee off with Zanny the nanny. Nobody's lived there in 140 days. So you're going to tell me that you dropped this kid off here 30 days ago. There's no furniture in this place. There's no sign of life, and they've checked with the people. Nobody has lived there in over 140 days. And so they're like, this is weird. And so they call Universal. Guess what? She doesn't work here. And so and I don't know how this happens, but they end up taking Caylee to Universal. And they're
Casey.
like, I'm sorry. Thank you.
I just keep saying it to
Casey,
help.
that's helpful. Thank you. Casey, they take Casey to Universal and they say, take us to your office. And she's an event coordinator. So of course she has an office. And she convinces the guy to let her in. He's like, nobody works here by that name. And she's like, no, I do. I work here. You have to let me in, like stuff like this. I guess he does, maybe because she's got police with her. And they're like, okay, you can go inside. She legitimately walks around Universal Studios and is like going through these offices and leading police, literally with them walking right behind her, leading police through this thing. She gets to a dead end, finally turns around and goes, okay, I don't work here. And they were like, yeah, we know. I mean, what? I can't even imagine.
She's convincing them, or she thinks she's convincing them.
Yes. So they take her to a room and they're like, we know you're lying. Nothing you've told us is true. Tell us where Caylee is. And she goes, I can't tell you where Caylee is. I don't know where Caylee is, all this other stuff. And they're like, do you understand that you lying to us is like keeping us from being able to find your kid, to find your child? And she just is like, I know. All I want to do is help find her. And they're like, then stop lying. Mm-hmm. Tell us what happened. She doesn't. I don't think they ever really get anywhere with her. So on July 16th, she is arrested.
Did she get acquitted because of mental defect?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope. She is arrested and charged with child neglect, obstructing an investigation, and making false official statements. So they kind of get her in for that.
Good.
And yeah, that's okay. So July 18th, just 2 days later, Casey hires Jose Baez as her legal attorney, and this guy is also a character. He has only been practicing law for 3 years at this point, which, you know, sis, you're about to go down for murder and murdering your kid, and you're gonna hire this rando guy who says, like, I'm gonna get you off on this, which is fine, and he actually does do that, but he was unable to get his, I just read this before I came. He's like unable, he should have been able to practice law for 11 years, but because he had so many fraudulent check charges and other unpaid somethings, he couldn't get his license to practice law or whatever. Something, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't really know how that works, but I know that's something is, yeah, whatever. So apparently this guy's a sleazeball and will just offend whoever. And I don't really think that's ever changed. I think that that's kind of who he goes for now, is those creepy, grimy, I don't care if you did it, I'm going to get you off whatever way I can. And I think that's what he did here. Spoiler alert on my thoughts. On July 29th, a judge denies the defense's motion to ban information from the media, which doesn't really sound that important, but apparently Florida public records law mandates that record requests from the media have to be given immediately. So you cannot hide things from the media, whereas I think there are several other states that you can, so it doesn't like mess with the investigation or mess with the trial. Florida doesn't allow that. If the media ask for information, you have to give it to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the reason that this case was so big, is because all of the 911 calls, all of the photographs, her hot body contest pictures, all of that was public. Mm-hmm. You couldn't hide it. So, I mean, that's just, to me, if some of that stuff would have been hid, this case would not have been what it was, which I think ends up really affecting the case in itself, and is why she's found not guilty.
It seems like all of these things, if publicized, would almost it doesn't necessarily convict her of killing her child,
right?
But certainly of the neglect.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
I mean,
disregard for her well-being.
Yeah, complete failure to protect.
Yeah. So on August 21st, bond is met and she's released with an electronic monitoring device. And there was like a big guy who did a TV show, and I can't remember his name, but he was like a big deal, and he puts bail for her $500,000. Yeah. She like reaches out to him and he posts bail for her, and he claims it was because he felt like if he did that, then she would lead them to where Caylee was, which she doesn't do, obviously. But it doesn't take long for Casey to find her way right back into the system, because she's arrested again on August 29th, just 8 days later, because she was forging checks from one of her friends that she lived with for a while. She was forging her friend's checks for at least $650.
So were there like search parties going on and all kinds of stuff happening?
Yeah, there were like places, like there was like a Texas group of searchers that came in and were searching, and just a ton of people
was she
searching for
helping
Caylee.
in the searches?
Actually, I think a lot of times, and I don't kind of want to get into this while we're talking about facts, although these are things she said, but it was a lot of things I felt like related back to her. At one point when she was talking on the phone with her friend while she's in jail, which, again, is recorded, so people have public access to this. That's why we know what she said. It was like her mom asked her, people are saying that Caylee's dead. And her response was literally, surprise, surprise. Yeah. It's just strange. And then a day or two after she's arrested, she's talking to her friend on the phone, and the friend, she's like ranting to her friend. She's upset, and she's like, everybody or nobody's on my side. All anyone cares about is finding Caylee. And her friend, and her friend is taken aback, like, that's what everybody really should be concerned with.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Sheila was like, oh, yeah, no, I'm concerned with that too.
Her mental capacity?
I have read that she was evaluated and found totally sane. They didn't feel like she was lying to them. They didn't see anything wrong with her. And I'm like, okay, this girl has lied literally about every single thing in this case. And you're going to tell me that
previously
she's not lying?
She had been reasonable IQ, I guess.
I think that they found that she had been pretty smart. And I'm going to give you some details, again, which kind of goes into one of the prosecution's part of the story, is that she was actually really smart and that all this was planned. And but I don't think that she was stupid or anything, but we'll get she did drop out of high school. But I don't really think it was stupid. I think it was more like she just didn't want to go, So of course, she gets arrested again for the forged checks. On September 5th, she's released again on another $500,000 bond, this time from her parents. And then on December 11th, skeletal remains of what appear to be a small child are found only a quarter mile away from the Anthony family home. A quarter mile away. And then on December 19th, a week later, DNA testing confirms that the remains do belong to Caylee Anthony. And then on January 23rd, again, this is just a fact. It doesn't really have anything to do with Casey herself.
But they couldn't see, when you say like skeletal remains.
Well, remember she went missing in June, and this is Florida. Her body was like wrapped in trash bags. Well, actually it was... Again, part of prosecution is there was duct tape over her body, like over her mouth, allegedly, and then she was wrapped in one of her blankets and then wrapped around in trash bags and then like taped around the trash bags and then put into a laundry bag, which is another matching laundry bag is found in the Anthony home. So I think that they all knew it was her. It was so close to the home and everything. But then DNA test that confirms that it was true. But I think everybody kind of believed. Actually, I know they did, because in the 911 call of the guy who found the body, and it was a random dude, a meter reader, who was just peeing in the woods. And actually, that's interesting too, because it was reported that he called back in August, which would have been, a month and a half, 2 months after she went missing. A month and a half, yeah. Like 3 separate times on a suspicious bag found in the woods. And he just went into the woods. He said he peed in the woods, and that's kind of what he did because he's a meter reader. And he, again, came back to that same area in December. And I don't know. I think people kind of believe he saw the bag in August and then came back to the bag in December to see if anything had come of it, but nobody had checked on it, or they didn't check well enough because the bag was still there, but now it had been torn open, and so he found the skull. And so he calls his boss and was like, hey, there's a skull here, like, well, what do I do? And the boss calls, and in that 911 call, he says, hey, I got a meter reader out there in this location. It's right around the Anthony home. He said it's right around that Caylee girl's home. So everybody knew at this point, and I think even they did. And the woman on the phone is like, please make sure he does not draw attention to this area. We want to make sure that we can get in there. And so I do think they all already knew. Mm-hmm. And then on January 23rd, George Anthony is found under the influence of alcohol and medication in his hotel room with a suicide note.
Wait, this is Cindy and George, the grandpa? Mm-hmm. Okay, grandpa.
He apparently took over 100 pills in order to end his life. But it doesn't work. I guess he was sending text messages to his family, I guess his little goodbye notes. And I think his wife got one, freaked out, called the police, and the police were able to get over there and I guess save him or stop it. Or, something. Or maybe it just wasn't enough. I don't know. But whatever, it ended up saving his life. So I feel like we've gotten to a point now, there's a lot of other facts I think that are in the case, but right now it's really important to go back and talk about the prosecution and the defense. But I want to start with the prosecution story because the defense's story was so shocking that I kind of want you to get a feel of what they went through as a jury and as the people inside. They're getting this evidence and facts and the idea about lying and everything else, and then bam, defense comes in and like changes the game, and everybody's like, what just happened? Because it looks like a black and white case. She's guilty, whatever. And then the defense comes in with the story and you're like, did not see that coming. Mm-hmm. So just as a reminder for our fans out there, this is what the prosecution's version of Casey Anthony's life during right before and right after Caylee went missing. I'm in no way saying this is exactly what happened. This is just their version of events. So obviously there are assumptions made on facts, and then there are places where the prosecution has to fill in the gaps because there is no 100%. It's not a cut and dry case. There is no, this is a smoking gun. So, and then we'll loop around and talk about the defense's side of the story without going through every last detail, but we'll kind of get the hint of both. So Casey Anthony, and we're going back to her childhood, grew up in an all-American normal household. Everyone was exceedingly normal, and they had a house, a little bit of debt, parents that worked, and 2 kids. There was nothing out of the ordinary. Casey herself grew up as a well-liked, popular child who had plenty of friends. She was apparently happy-go-lucky, and it really wasn't until her high school years where she began lying. Many of her friends from high school say they remember her being untruthful a lot and just telling silly little lies, but we see a much bigger lie unfold right around the time that Casey is supposed to graduate. So a week before the graduation ceremony happens, Cindy asks Caylee why she doesn't have a cap and gown for graduation. Casey claims that there was some sort of mix-up or something and she's not going to be able to walk, but she is definitely still graduating. But she's not. Mm-hmm. She wasn't even close to graduating. She was missing several credits, enough to where there was no way she was going to fix it. All this is kind of weird, and I know this is happening in 2008, and I am teaching in 2022. But I find it really hard to believe that the school wouldn't call and say, hey, your daughter is missing these credits and she's not going to graduate,
Especially in high school.
Yeah.
In college, when you're an adult, then it's up to you.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
you've got to figure it out.
You can totally convince your parents. But, yeah, high school, I just think it would be very hard. If you're a happy, normal family,
yes,
then you would assume you would have parental involvement.
Yes, right. And, yeah, happy parent, whatever. But Yeah, I think that's weird. Unless Casey had given them the wrong number, and they were calling her instead.
Well, and she's forged checks. I'm sure she
Yeah.
forged signatures on everything.
Yeah. Yep. But apparently she stopped going for a time. And again, you have truancy laws, stuff like that. 2008 is very different than 2022. But, I don't know. I find that there's something weird going on there. Either the school didn't care that she was just going to drop out, and so they just kind of ignored it. They didn't know it was actually going to happen. But if you're several credits short, the school's calling my parents. You know what I mean? I don't know. But anyway, she does not graduate yet. George and Anthony are furious that she's not going to be able to graduate, and they're upset by it. But Casey, they end up throwing her a graduation party anyway. So it's like they don't want people to know that she's not graduating. So they go on with the whole ruse. She's graduating. We're going to have a graduation party for her. And I think they even tell people the same thing that she told them. There was a mix-up. She won't be able to walk, but she's still graduating. So let's have a party. She gets gifts and money and all that other stuff. She's not graduating.
So we're already starting the conning.
Yes. A year or so later, George and Cindy are at a family reunion, and they're approached by a relative who asks when Casey is supposed to have her baby. And George and Cindy are like, our daughter's a virgin. So, and he was like, thought she was pregnant. They're like, no, she's just holding a bunch of water weight.
Happens.
Water weight, yeah. Spoiler alert again, Casey is indeed pregnant. She is not a virgin. And they are furious with her. They confront her after this reunion. They've told several people, apparently more than one person asked, this girl's far enough along that they can tell that she's pregnant. And they're like, no, she's not pregnant. She's just carrying water. She put on some weight. She's retaining water, stuff like that. Her parents don't even find out that she's actually pregnant until Casey is 6 months along. I don't know how big you were at 6 months, but that's pretty big. I was like, there was no hiding my pregnancy at 6 months. I couldn't wear a baggy shirt. You could definitely see the belly already.
Yeah.
So that's just crazy to me. Or I don't know, did they just believe what she was saying all the time? Like, I can see that your belly's growing a little bit every couple of weeks, which is concerning because you either have a cyst that we need to get checked out or you're pregnant, which you've said you cannot be. They're upset with her, obviously, but then they keep her around. They don't, kick her out or anything, and she's going to have the baby. They ask her who the dad is.
But so she's living at home this whole time?
Yeah.
This is weird.
Yeah. Well, she... I think she does live with boyfriends every once in a while, but I think she kind of always makes her way back home. I don't know that for a fact.
Her parents think she's a virgin through all that.
I guess so. I guess. But they try to figure out who the father is, and Casey gives them several different options. Well, it's this guy. But they can't even say, hey, is this your kid? Because dude died in a car crash 2 years ago. Or a year. No, that's not possible. But the year before, whatever. How many ever months before he died before they could talk to him. And then, they kind of go on about it, but then it could be this other guy, but he also died in a car crash a couple months ago.
Oh,
is she killing these people? We don't know. I don't know. But she does give several different names. I don't think anybody knows who Casey's father is. I'm not even really convinced that Caylee's father. I don't even know if Casey knows who Caylee's father is. Because in my mind, why would it be that big of a deal to keep a secret until Casey went missing? Caylee went missing. Wow, I'm messing this up. You know what I mean? I get you don't want people to know the father, but to say it was all these different people, including she had a boyfriend at the time, and she was pregnant with this while she was with this guy, and I think he really wanted to be the father, but the timeline would have not made sense. Mm-hmm. She would have already been pregnant on the day that they met.
Right.
And so they do a paternity test. He's not the father, but I think he kind of claims Caylee as his own, and they have a strong relationship. And I think he even at one point tried to adopt Caylee.
This is the hot body contest, dude?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. But I think Cindy freaks out when he wants to adopt her, and so she doesn't let Casey let him adopt Caylee. And so I guess they eventually break up because then she dates the guy, Tony Lazzaro, who is the hot body dude. But there's like a whole, I'm sure there's more boyfriends. So this
guy was just out of her life at that point?
Yeah, I think so.
The wannabe adopted dad?
I guess so, yeah.
That would have been helpful.
Yeah,
he would have been around.
Right. So, at one point, I think that Caylee is she's definitely pregnant, and a friend reports later, again, this is part of the prosecution story, a friend reports later that she told this friend that she was going to give the baby up for adoption. But her mom is like, ain't happening. You are not doing that. We are going to raise the baby, whatever. I think this kind of...
Oh, you mean when she found out she's pregnant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think that this paints not the greatest picture of Casey as a mother, and I think it helps the prosecution in at least the media's eyes say she didn't want this baby, so she got rid of it later. And it just something's saying something like that before the baby's even born, and now that same little girl's missing, and I just don't think it was good for Casey. Anyway, many people state that Casey was a good mom. She didn't go out much, and she was attentive to Caylee. After a bit of falling out with her parents, now this is Casey, this would have been 2 years later. So Caylee is 2 years old, going on 3. So she would have been 3 in August. I'm wanting to say August 8th, but I didn't write it down in my notes. August 8th or something. Sometime in August, she would have turned 3. And she, of course, goes missing in June. So that's like, like Carter's age. Mm-hmm. Or like almost Mara's age. To me, that just really puts it into like a heartbreaking, setup, I guess. So it says my people state. I don't have any people. She didn't go out much and was attentive.
My people, your people.
Yeah. After a bit of a falling out with her parents, Casey and Caylee move out of her parents' house and into the boyfriend's house, Tony Lazzaro's. And that is just a few days before Caylee goes missing. So she moves out and moves in with this boyfriend a couple days, a week maybe, before Caylee goes missing. But she goes back to her parents' house and she stays the night at her parents' house. So Cindy sees Caylee on the 15th. And there's video proof that Caylee was with grandmother Cindy on the 15th. And then, so this is where the story gets a little messy. Just a few days later, while visiting her parents on June 16th, George Anthony, Casey's father, claims that he watched as Casey and Caylee left the house around 12:30. Caylee had on a little backpack. They were supposed to be returning back to the boyfriend's house. And they would not see Casey for another 31 days, and they would never be able to see Caylee again at this point. So that's what George says happens. He watched them leave at 12:30, and he went to go to work at 2:30, and Mom had already left for the day. She left before everybody else got up, so she did not see anybody that day. So let's do a quick recap of the timeline we talked about earlier. Casey is seen with her boyfriend on that day, that same day, later that night, on video with no Caylee. So George says, I watched them leave, and then she's seen later. The next known whereabouts of Casey was at this Blockbuster at 7 p.m. with no Caylee. So, and then 4 days later, she does her hot body contest. Then after that, she gets a tattoo, and she does all this other stuff before they find the car. Mom calls the police, reports Caylee's missing, and so for 31 days, Casey has done nothing to help locate her daughter. The prosecution finds that at one point, the Anthony family computer was used to Google chloroform. And they claimed that Casey planned to get rid of Caylee by chloroforming her and then suffocating her. Caylee's body, of course, we talked about that, was wrapped in trash bags and put in a laundry bag. They claimed that there was duct tape found on her mouth. And now there wasn't a lot, and I hate to say stuff like this on here, but there wasn't a lot of Caylee left. It was really just bones at this point because of it was wet in the area that she was left, and of course the summer heat in Florida and the humidity and everything else, and the bag was torn up and whatever. So there was duct tape, and it appeared to have been over the mouth of Caylee. And there's also this, and I think they brought this up at trial, but I'm not sure if it was actually able to be used because there was no 100% proof. But a forensic analyst found that there was a heart-shaped sticker over the center of the tape that would have gone over her mouth. Yeah, there was a heart-shaped sticker, of which they found exactly the same size heart-shaped stickers in Casey's room. So, but in the defense's side, and I'll go ahead and give that just because I think it's important. They said that the tape could have slipped. It did, it's not guaranteed that was there because there wasn't much left of her. There was only skeletal remains, so they can't say for a fact that the tape was over her mouth. So, that's how they get around that one. The prosecution claims that she wanted a free lifestyle so that she could party and play around with her friends, and her actions after the disappearance of her daughter seem to point to exactly that, with her getting a tattoo, and a beautiful life tattoo. You have a beautiful life and your daughter's missing? Not okay. My dog went missing for 10 days a few years ago during Thanksgiving break. I was pregnant at this point, but I literally lost my mind. My dog. Y'all, my dog. We spent every single day for those 10 days looking for him, like putting up posters, posting all over Facebook. Like, I could not sleep knowing my dog was missing.
For those who don't know us, I have a 2 and 4-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
You have a 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm in a grocery store, which we listen to true crime,
mm-hmm.
if I'm in a grocery store and Ellery gets out of my vision
mm-hmm.
or something, or like we went to Dillard's and Mara takes off running,
mm-hmm.
and I can see her, but I'm having a panic attack.
Yeah.
Like somebody's going to snatch her or something
just get
like
away.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, if I just didn't know where my kid was.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yes.
I would be a nervous wreck.
Yeah. Yep. And that's literally, with my dog, we did everything we could to find a dog.
Yeah.
We love our pets, and our pets are something, but children are different. It's not the same. And so I think I sometimes will just be in my bed and I'll go, oh my gosh, what if somebody comes through the window and takes Carter? I can't hear it and there's nothing I can do to stop it. And that will keep me up at night, and I'll be anxious about that all night long. So much so to where I've added mechanisms to her window to where I can make sure stuff like that doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's that ridiculous. And you're going to go to a hot body contest while your daughter's missing? No, ma'am. We're not doing that. That's not okay. She claims that... Oh, wait. Let's go back a little bit. The only reason that I can say that, or the only thing I can think of, is that she already knew Caylee was gone. And so in her head, she's got to be like, well, nothing I can do about it now. She's gone, so I'm going to just live the life that I want to live. And so she continues that same, looking for Caylee, and I just want her to be found facade throughout the entire investigation until they actually do find Caylee, and I think that's ridiculous. And then, of course, you already know the facts. She gets arrested, gets released, does some bad things, gets whatever. And then we get to the trial where
when they found the remains, how'd she act?
I don't actually know. I don't remember hearing anything about that.
On trial, was she, emotional and putting on a facade, or was she very much
I think that there were definitely
lazy?
Parts that she got emotional with, but I think it was usually when the defense was talking about her, not when anybody was talking about Caylee.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what the defense said. The defense claims that Casey Anthony, and now granted, this is all happening in the opening statement. So the prosecutions opened their statement. They said, this is what happened. We're going to prove it. And then the defense comes in and says, Casey Anthony was sexually abused by her father starting when she was just 8 years old. And he says it in really vulgar terms. And I think that's what was really so shocking to people. And I won't say that here because it was really bad. But they claim that this is the reason that Casey lies so much, is because she had to lie to everybody when she was a little girl to cover up the fact that she was getting sexually abused. And she continued to lie throughout her entire life to be able to cope with that. Which is totally understandable. And I think that that's kind of how they are able to get her through this, because they make you go enough like, oh, is that really what happened, for you to have reasonable doubt, which is all they have to do. They don't have to prove she's innocent. They just have to say, well, their case isn't good enough. And I guess it wasn't. So the defense goes on to tell their side of what happened to Caylee, and they state that George Anthony found Caylee had drowned in their pool on July 16th, and he picked up her body and ran to Casey, where he yelled at her and claimed that she was going to go to prison for neglect. He said, your mother will never forgive you, and you're going to go to prison for this for the rest of your life. And then they say that he's manipulative, and he says, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to fix this. And so they claim that he took Caylee's body and got rid of it for Casey. And he told her, live out your life as normally as possible so that nobody gets suspicious. So keep doing you. So that's why they said she was doing a hot body contest and she's getting a tattoo. She's like just pretending that everything is okay, because that's what her father said to do, so that they don't draw attention to it. And they also claim that, and they bring up his suicide attempt and say he did this because he was so riddled with guilt at what he had done. And so I won't go into all the trial details because I feel like we've pretty much gotten all of the things that we're going to get. We know that through all the evidence, they don't find enough to convict her. So she is found not guilty on all charges. Or not on all charges. She's found guilty on some charges like lying and stuff like that. And but I think that she ends up only having to serve 3 or 4 years, but they allow for time already served. And so 11 days after she is found not guilty, she gets to walk out. She doesn't have to spend it. That's it. 11 days was her sentencing for the things that she had done. Because she had already spent time in jail. But I said Casey is released back into the world.
So nothing ever happened with George?
No, they don't like... I think that's weird. Is that he's never charged with anything, or he says
because they can't try it again.
Didn't happen. Well, and I think the prosecution, sorry, I gotta adjust. The prosecution says, I read somewhere that the prosecution went to the Anthony's and were like, this is what they're going to say, and we just want you to be prepared for that. And then they also tell him that they can't show any emotion within the courtroom. So Jose Baez is going around saying these horrible things, and I mean they were really bad, about what George did to Casey, and he just has to sit there like stone-faced. And I think a lot of people, again, because all this is super media-sized, whatever, and I think that a lot of people took that to mean like, oh, he was guilty because he didn't show any emotion, but he was literally told he couldn't. And of course they bring him onto the stand and he says, I absolutely would never have done that. I did not do that to her. And this is what I know. They left around 12:30 that day. And I do think that it's been kind of proven that couldn't have been true, though. She couldn't have left at 12:30 that day because there are things on that family computer that would have shown that she was there. So she logged into MySpace at 2:30 and was still on that computer at 4:30, and they were able to go back and look at that stuff. She was at the home, at the Anthony home. So I don't know where those wires get crossed, or maybe a little bit of the defense's side is true, but he claims he left at 2:30. She makes a couple calls, talks to her boyfriend, is messaging people.
Because the body was found near the Anthony home, not near the apartment.
Not near the apartment, near the Anthony home, yes. And so, sorry. So they say, that George took her and disposed of the body. Again, that's a horrible thing to say, but that's what they claim. And of course, she's there. This is, again, trial details, whatever. I'm going to go into what I think happened, and then we'll talk about Enneagram type.
Perfect.
I can't say that none of this happened either way, because there is just no proof. There's no proof that she was or was not sexually abused by George. there is no proof that the tape was actually over the girl's mouth, over Caylee's mouth. But I just don't think that the defense's story makes sense, because George Anthony was a police officer for 10 years. As a police officer, I don't think you would leave a body close to your home, not buried. You know what I mean? Like, the body was going to be found. And to be wrapped in her blanket, to be, tape over the mouth with probably a sticker. That's not 100% sure, but there was the outline of the sticker there. And the fact that, I didn't even mention this, but there was decomposition found in Caylee's trunk. I mentioned that it smelled like a dead body. They did like a search on the car, and they had I think a dog come in, and the dog smelled decomposition. And so they did this thing where they tested the air. I don't really know how that works, but they tested the air and found higher forms of chloroform than you should find. Like, chloroform kind of exists, I guess, in the world, but there was an obnoxious amount of chloroform found in the trunk area. And then there was definite signs of decomposition through the air quality that was found in the trunk. And then not only that, but they found hairs in the trunk that were could have been Casey or Cindy or Caylee's hair, but they think it was Caylee's hair because it was untreated, whereas both Cindy and Casey had colored hair. Mm-hmm. So this untreated hair had what was called a death band around it. So not only is this Caylee Anthony's hair that's in this car, probably 90% sure it's her hair, but it's got this decomposition ring that only happens when your body dies. And it's this darker band that is around the root of the hair in her trunk. And I'm like, why would the dad put this body in a trunk of a car that he didn't even take that day? Drive around with it for enough time for a decomposition smell to happen, and you to be able to take the hair, get the hair fall off. I guess that could happen within seconds, but enough time for that aroma and the air quality to change. So the body had to be in there for a little while. And then the defense's claim is that there's a call between Casey and her father that only lasts 23 seconds. And they say, in this call, he was saying, "I took care of it. You don't have to worry about it anymore." But again, that makes no sense. If the body has just died, Caylee has just died, and then you put it in the trunk, there's not going to be that much decomposition. You know what I mean? Not enough to create a smell, not enough to create a death band. I don't know how fast a death band works, honestly. But it's just not enough time. The time doesn't fit for me. And I think what happened is that, and this is actually what her dad thinks too, is that Casey called the nanny Zanny the nanny. That's what she told the people. That's Zanny the nanny. And what George believes happened is that Casey would give Caylee Xanax, and of course the street name is Zanny. Mm-hmm. She would give her Xanax to get her to go to sleep for long periods of time so that Casey could go out with her friends, and that she didn't have to worry about paying anybody because she didn't have a job, and she was having to fraud tricks so that she could get money, and that she would give her kids Xanax. And what he thinks happened is that she just accidentally overdosed her one day, and that Caylee died accidentally, that it wasn't on purpose, and that she freaked out and didn't know what to do. So she put her in the trunk, which the car was said to have been backed in. The garage that day. One of the neighbors said that they for sure saw it that day. It's just, there's a ton of stuff like that. There's duct tape found on the gas cans, which is a whole other thing, but she tried to borrow gas cans at one point. It's just a whole bunch. And I think Caylee was in that car for a day at least, maybe a couple, until she decided, I have to do something. And she went back to the house. I guess her parents didn't see her because they didn't see her for 31 days. But the blanket that Caylee was wrapped in was her blanket from the house, was Caylee's blanket. And the laundry tote was from the Anthony house. So either she decided, I accidentally did this and I have to take care of this, or I don't know, or she let the kids sit in the car but if you're wrapped in a trash bag, you can't drop hair. You know what I mean? So I don't think she was wrapped up then. I think it had to have been later. And then I think Casey's smart, but I don't know if she's that smart enough to not drop her off more than a quarter mile away from the house. And then there are some people who believe, so the nanny, Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, there are some people believe that Casey did that on purpose, gave them that name on purpose, because that is where she left Caylee. Because it just so happens that if you look at this area, this wooded area where Caylee's body was found, there are two houses that are literally like practically their properties are pointing to where Caylee was found. One of the people's name is Zenaida, and the other person's name is Gonzalez. So they think that some people believe, again, I don't know if she's smart enough to have done this or if it's just a really weird coincidence, but some people believe she told people, I left her with Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez, because that is literally where she left her. I left her between these two houses, like in the woods. Weird coincidence. But after a year or so later, after the trial, I guess somebody's looking into this family computer. I don't know if they still have it in evidence or what, but they are able to go back into the browser history, and there was a Google search for foolproof suffocation methods. Foolproof suffocation methods. Who looks that up?
For Casey searching that, or the Anthony?
I think that it was proven to have happened while Casey was on the computer, when she was logged in, when she had been messaging people, when she was in password protected things. Now, I do know that earlier I mentioned the chloroform thing. Her mom claims that was her, and she was actually trying to look up chlorophyll, but she accidentally saw like chloroform came up when she was typing in the Google search bar, and she clicked on it because she thought she was interested in it.
But there was chloroform found, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that was 100% able to be proven, because it was like a new science, and chloroform still exists in the air, so you can't tell if that really would have been what it was. I mean, there was like the defense just did a really good job at creating reasonable doubt. But to me, the foolproof suffocation methods is what is the worst part is that it is the investigators' fault, because they only checked one browser. And on that browser, of course, they found the chloroform. But if they would have looked on Firefox instead of just Internet Explorer, whatever they looked at that time, but I found that it was Firefox. It was on the Firefox. It said foolproof suffocation methods. I think if they would have found that, they'd have been able to get a conviction with the tape over the mouth and the heart sticker and the way she was found. And yeah, it's just heartbreaking. But of course, we know she's found not guilty. So, Enneagram types, do you have any ideas?
Oh, I get 9 vibes.
Oh, I really did too.
Because she's very passive and lazy and
I just want to say this, and I am not coming at all my 9s. One of my best friends is a 9. I love 9s. But in one of my Google searches, you will find me Googling who is the biggest liar on the Enneagram, just because I kind of look up stuff like that to help me to decide. And 9s are the biggest liars, apparently. They very much want to keep the peace.
They'll
and
say
they're willing
what you
to
want
do.
to hear. Yeah.
Yep.
And not people all 9s are lazy.
Of course,
We're talking about the most unhealthy of
Yes.
unhealthy of unhealthy.
Yes. So, yeah. I actually really, really thought a 9 as well. But I ended up...
I don't think a 3. I don't think a 1.
Yeah.
I don't get 2 vibes at all.
Nope.
So my guesses are 4, 5, 7, 9.
Yeah, those are really good. So what I came up with was a 7.
Okay.
And I had seen... So, you Google stuff like Enneagram and Casey Anthony, and I had seen a lot of people say 7, and I was like, 7? I don't think she's 7 at all. And I actually at one point thought a 3, just because, with the telling people what they want to hear, and, narcissism is a big, like a 3 thing, not really a 3 thing. Anybody can be narcissistic.
I don't think she was like narcissistic for show.
I think she
was like narcissistic to her core, but not to like prove how great she. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
she doesn't give me
the hot body
trophy
contest for me.
Yeah,
but just the
I
so
could see
firm with the
7,
lying. Though. I mean, it was said that she would go so far, and I don't know if this is true. I don't think she's ever admitted to this, but people assume that she kind of just went through a phone book and would pick names. Okay, so this is going to be the nanny's name, and she made up other people. Like, I work with this guy, his name is so and so. He's the one who told me about Zanny the nanny. He is a kid that's similar to my age. There was a real guy who worked at Universal, but he had not worked for Universal for many years, like 6 years prior. Like, not even when
he was like, I have no clue what she's talking about.
Yeah, he's like, not only have I never met this woman, but I don't have a child. She made up a child for this man. He's like, I don't even have a kid, so I definitely don't have a nanny. So I would not have told her. I mean, she went into that many details. And like walking around Universal so that you can get to a dead end and be like, sorry. It's just crazy to me.
Well, in a 7, if she killed her and her core desire was to be free, then I mean, total.
Yes.
Not that any other 7s would ever do that.
Yes. That's where I actually eventually landed, because I did go to a 9 and I was like, I think she's a 9. She just wants to, ease through things. Again, she doesn't. Again, unhealthy 9.
If she didn't do it, I could see 9-ish.
Yes. If her father was like, I'm going to control you, you have to disassociate. That's what they said was happening, is that she disassociated so much so to where she was a shell of a human. Unhealthy 9s do that. They become shell of a human people because they cannot cope with the things that are going on around them. And if what the defense said was true, like I said earlier, 2 different Enneagram types. If what the defense said was true, and that Caylee died by drowning on that day, and George Anthony took the body, then I do think that, she's a 9. But I think that with what I think happened with foolproof suffocation methods and all of the other stuff, I think that she's a 7, and she just had impulse controls that she couldn't control. So she wanted to be free, and she wanted to have that freedom, and I think that it just got to a point one day where she...
And so boyfriend acts as though he knows nothing.
He did, he says he didn't know anything was wrong, and when, if he mentioned where Caylee was, she was always somewhere. And she told him that that the babysitter, Zanny the nanny, took Caylee to Universal or Disney World and all this stuff, like all this cool stuff, like, you can't talk to Caylee right now because she's at Universal with Zanny. They're going to be there for 3 days. So, I mean, just stuff like that. So I don't think that he really thought anything was wrong, because she told him, oh, she's with my mom, or she's with Zanny the nanny, or, so he just kind of went on as normal until she's arrested. And I'm sure he's like, what the heck is going on? Because again, she's acting normal and she's going to these nightclubs because he works for a nightclub. And so with the tattoo, I just don't think she has any impulse control. And I think the lying just was spinning out of control, and she had done it for so long. And I think her parents enabled that with allowing her to get away with so many things, graduating, I think the pregnancy.
Lying, because there is 3 vibes.
Yeah.
But I don't think the lying is to be successful.
Yeah.
I don't think success is her goal. I don't know what her goal is, but a 7's core motivation is like... adventure, freedom.
Yes, I saw, when I was reading it, where is it at? On the Enneagram Institute, it's their core fear, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Let me read that. Type 7, Enneagram Institute. Basic fear is of being deprived or in pain, and I think that part of that is how she was able to act like nothing was wrong. Because again, the psychologist went in and said, we don't think she's like a psychopath or a sociopath. We don't know any of those things. We can't see any of that in her. And I think that she was able to force all of the bad things that happened. So again, did she intentionally kill Caylee? I don't know. The Foolproof Suffocation Google search to me says, yeah, she did. But But I also can't imagine a human being doing that to their child. So I keep going.
Well,
it was probably an
Chris
accident.
Watts.
It just blows my mind.
We have some rough cases
I know.
this season.
I know. This one has seemed like really dark.
The next one is bad.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Chris
but just
Watts is bad.
of being deprived and in pain, I think she was able to like shove down the hurt for Caylee and really bring up the, well, what do I want in life? Because now I get to pursue what I want in life.
Mm-hmm.
So I did end up on a 7.
Yeah.
What do you
The
think?
most unhealthy of unhealthy levels of health. I want to pull that real quick while we get the quiz going.
Yeah, in unhealthy levels, it says desperate to quell their anxieties. They can be impulsive and infantile. They don't know when to stop. And to me, that really shows with her lying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she literally had to be taken to a dead end in Universal Studios before she finally would stop and say, okay, I was not being truthful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there we go. Casey Anthony is a 7, probably. Oh, and you want to know what's crazy? She's out, right? She's still free. She still lives in Florida, which to me, if that were me and I did not kill my child and I was innocent of that, but I was the most hated woman in America, I'd probably leave the country. You know, I'd go live somewhere else. Now, granted, this probably was a worldwide case, but I would go live somewhere else, have a nice, quiet life. I would not live in the state where all this happened. Definitely not. But she, you're never going to guess, has started a business, a investigation business.
Oh, good.
Like, what? Okay, whatever. I thought that was interesting. So catch up with Casey Anthony now. That's what she's doing. Okay, our quiz, if you are new here, we say this every week, but if you are new here, we do a BuzzFeed or similar quiz based on the answers that we think that our subject of that week would say in that quiz. And so for this quiz, I chose, this quiz will reveal what kind of liar you are. So I felt like it was fitting. So,
and this is another good point in time to say that we do not take the deaths lightly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely not.
By any means. It's gut-wrenching, and this is not necessarily a podcast where we're honoring the victims.
Mm-hmm.
There should be lots of ways that people are honoring the victims. This is simply a true crime, personality, look
Enneagram.
into the killer. Yeah. We're not trying to idolize the killer or
absolutely
anything
not.
like that. So
you can obviously tell that I think that I hate this woman. And I don't really hate a lot of people, but she grinds my gears. Everything about her. So this quiz will reveal what kind of liar you are. And then it says, liar, liar, pants on fire. Are you ready?
Ready.
Okay. What are you most likely to lie about? Everything.
Yeah. I'm like, is there a select all?
Your favorite song?
What you did last summer.
Why you were speeding.
How much you love your friend's new haircut.
What you did last summer.
Yeah. It's got to be a big thing.
Yeah. Who are you most likely to lie to?
Someone you just met.
Your teacher and boss.
Your parents.
Your closest friends.
We got a parents.
I gotta go with parents, yeah.
How often do you lie?
Never.
Not often.
Whenever I get the chance.
When I really have to. What would she say?
Probably never. Or not often. If she's being...
I'm being honest.
Well, I think she would probably say only when I really have to.
Yeah. She's got to be.
Do you lie more or tell the truth more?
I lie more.
I lie more. I don't think she told the truth in the case at all.
How good at lying are you?
I don't know.
I'm okay.
Not very good.
I get away with everything.
Everything. That's it. A big fat liar.
Yes.
You are a big fat liar.
You like to tell big and impressive lies. You're good at lying and you know it. You take some pride in your lying ability and you want everyone to notice it without telling them. Which
We noticed.
Surprisingly, she's not a great liar. But she's good enough.
Actually, I think that she is a good liar, but then she lied about a very wrong thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's a good enough liar to where she was able to convince
As long
people.
as no one looks too deep.
Yes.
She's a surface liar.
Yes, but then she goes into so much detail.
Mhm.
Like, the cops are following up on these lies, and they're like, you don't know this woman? She gave me your first, middle, and last name and the name of your child, where you worked, and you don't know her at all? And he's like, no, I don't. I've never met that lady. So, I don't know. I think, yeah, she lies. Yeah.
She lies enough to where people wouldn't even think that she's lying.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd just be like, oh, well, of course she knows him.
Yeah. Yeah.
She knows everything about him.
Yeah.
As long as you don't look too deep into it and question her.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, this has been another episode of Killer Personality Podcast. She certainly has a killer in the bad sense personality.
Yes. Don't forget to follow us on the Instagram.
We've been doing some fun stuff
And
and
the
doing our
YouTube.
reels.
Yeah, we're about to record one right now. But we will see you guys next week when we talk about Chris Watts.
Oh,